All right, welcome to the Dashboard Dojo. My name is David Carnes, and today we're going to talk about embedded analytics. So glad that you could join us. So we'll do quick introductions. We'll run through a list of techniques. We'll practice some stuff. We'll talk about upcoming Dojo topics. We'll talk about some upcoming OpFocus events, and we can do Q&A throughout. I'm so thankful to have Kyle Shagnon with me here today. If you have a question or comment, you can drop it into the chat, and you're also welcome, if you want to raise your hand and add a comment as we're going along. He can take you off mute. So glad that you can join us. All right, so my name is David Carnes. As I mentioned, I'm the chairman and chief evangelist of OpFocus. I've been privileged to be a Salesforce MVP the past year. I try to share something about myself with each one. This is me speaking at Dreamforce in one of the theaters. I think it was 2019. And I have this goal with public speaking. I'd like to speak to a group of over 5,000. So that day's coming, but still working on it. Kyle and I are from OpFocus. We're a consultancy based in the US and Canada. We've been a Salesforce partner since 2006. And we work with SaaS companies to optimize their revenue operations. So today I'd like to talk about why embed charts and dashboards, like why even do this. I've got maybe top 5 reasons that I think, and I'm sure we can come up with more. We'll talk about embedded report charts, embedded report dashboards, and then a couple of extra things around best practices and other options. So one other option that we can take advantage of is component visibility. So if you're going to take the time to embed a dashboard into a homepage, you can take one extra step to decide, should everybody see this dashboard, which would be the default, or you could limit it to just people on the executive team or just people on the sales team. We can also, we have a couple of options with component visibility, so look forward to showing you that. We'll talk about folders and why you want to protect your embedded report chart and dashboards. We'll use read-only, review-only folders, so we'll put them there. I've got 2 demos that we'll do, and we'll talk about some best practices. Before we get started, it'd be really great to hear if anybody wants to raise their hand and share an experience with, actually, why don't we do the poll first? Let's do the poll first. So we have a quick poll question. Love to get your answers if you've embedded a report chart or a dashboard or both, or haven't tried yet, but excited to try. It'd be great to. All right. Okay, that's probably most of us.
Yes, looks like most people are have little experience, but they're very excited.
Okay, great. So this is really a nice way to just get a little bit more out of your reporting experience in Salesforce. I've got a quick top 5 list of why I do this. So you can see here in the screenshot, we've got a home page. This is a home tab, and right at the top, we've got a nice thin panel of my team's sales, and this might be for a mid-level manager. So Laura Garza might be our mid-level manager, and we want to give her something right on the embedded into the home page. Looks like she's got some trouble this month with no data. That's bad. All right, so top 5 list. We can highlight relevant data. And if you think of looking at an account, like an account's a perfect example of this. And I think of a lot of organizations embracing customer success. Let's say that we're part of a nonprofit, and we have different types of projects and services that we offer our constituents. We might want to look at a household and look at their utilization of our services, and we could show that visually, embed that directly into the account layout. So we can highlight relevant data. We can help drive decisions. What I love, I remember one of our early clients with OpFocus, I think it was like client number 4, which was ultimately sold for over 100 million. And if you walked in the door of this organization, at the front door, actually, if you were to exit any of the front door or the back door, a huge monitor with the key metrics for the company, and you'd see people like walking off to lunch and look up and say, oh my gosh, that's not supposed to be like that. And then they turn around, go back to their desk and remedy whatever the issue was. But this is kind of like that, right? We can help drive decisions that are important for the business by putting them front and center. And this like never more important than for middle management, right? So when you first buy Salesforce in Lightning, there are 0 reports and there are 0 dashboards. So that's not a very high amount of starting stuff. So, middle management tends to get left out, and this is a really nice way to help them manage their team. So this isn't the world's best example on this screenshot, but if I was Lara Garza managing my team, I could just see relevant data right on the homepage, right as I log in, and you can see that there's an embedded list view right below it on the homepage for Lara's active large ops. And let's say you have 10 middle sales managers. Each one, when they look at the page, we would have the dashboard show for them using component visibility, and they could just have access to the key data right in front of their fingertips. So why else would we do this? I think this is a great way to improve ROI. And this is measured in different ways. So ultimately, it's your CFO when she gets this big renewal bill each year for Salesforce. And for many of you, it's like a 7-figure number to go pay for Salesforce. Just any amount of extra analytics, decision support tools really increases that sense of ROI for the return on investment for your assistance, your instance. So I think the number one reason for embedding charts and dashboards is it makes you look like a badass. So like it's just a great way to make it look like, and it's not even hard. So you've already done the hard work. You've created a report, you add a chart to it, or you create a dashboard. You've already done the hard work. This is the easy part to drag and drop it onto a page layout. You will have to have system administrator skills or access to a sysadmin who can put the report chart or the dashboard onto a page layout for you. But really, this is a nice way of adding some more value into your system. Before we move on, I'm curious if anyone would like to raise their hand and share any experience that they've had embedding a report. I know some of you indicated that you had done embedded a report chart or embedded a dashboard. So maybe Tim can go first. Hey, Tim, how's it going?
Hey, it's going well. Thank you, David.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. So my context is from working with nonprofit organizations, and I've got one organization that provides a lot of services to a small group of health centers, and there's a lot of interest at sort of a individual account level to see that activity of events that staff have participated in, and also kind of requests for support that have been provided. So on that account screen, having like a bar graph that shows over the past 6 months activity and what kinds of events their staff have attended is giving them a really quick way to see the engagement that their member organizations have.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And the more you look, the more interesting stuff that you can add. I think nonprofit organizations are such a great example because there's so many interrelated objects that you could tie in, depending on the type of service that nonprofit is providing, or fundraising data, or other types of information. I think it's really a perfect example of taking advantage of this.
And not making them have to click on a reports tab or find a report or a dashboard, and literally just have it in the context of what they're already looking at is a huge difference.
Yeah, I think I should add that as one of the why do this. It's to put it right in front of their face. So thank you, Tim, for emphasizing that.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Tracy, tell us about your experiences with this. Hey, Tracy.
Hi, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I work in an office that kind of scales a lot of different teams. So we've got the project management, we've got the people in the field, we have sales, we have marketing. So I've created a homepage for each team that has all of the relevant reports in a dashboard that is embedded on their homepage.
Oh, that's great. And how many teams are you? So you said you created a separate, did you say you created a separate dashboard or a separate homepage for each team?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've got like the execs have a forecasting pipeline dashboard on theirs. And then we have project management, which kind of shows scope and where everything stands within the different projects. Marketing, obviously just kind of their information on there, and then sales, all the opportunities and related forecasting, et cetera.
And one of the things that we'll see with component visibility is that we could potentially do it all on one page. So let's say that we have a generic homepage for the team that lists recent items and stuff to approve and whatnot. We can use component visibility to have, you know, this dashboard shown to this team and this dashboard shown to this other team. That doesn't always work, and I'm assuming in Tracy's case that there, you know, are other differences between the home pages. But I think that's great. So thank you for sharing that. Looks like Betty has something to share as well. Hey, Betty. How are you, Betty? Not sure if Betty's on mute.
Yeah, fine.
Happy New Year,
Hello,
Betty.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. By the way, you spoke about what I wanted to speak about. That lately we have created an home page for a group of people, both managers and sales representatives. And eventually we put both dashboards on the same home page and use a component visibility that it was much more convenient for us to build. So yeah, very convenient, very easy, and it works since the home page was mostly with the same other components. So we could change the dashboard. I don't know how many dashboards we can put on the same page, but the limit maybe.
You know, I don't know if there is a limit. So probably all of you have heard that you can have up to 20 components on a single dashboard. I remember at Dreamforce, it was probably 2019, whenever we were last there together, somebody said, why are we limited to 20? And I leaned over and said, well, you can put more than one dashboard onto a home page or onto an app page. So you can have multiple dashboards on the same page. I don't know of an outer limit. There might be some kind of a page optimization limit that if you put 25 dashboards, it might slow it down. But I haven't bumped into it yet.
At least with two, it works perfectly well. And for example, me, as an administrator, when I'm connected on the same home page, because of my profile, I have access to both, so I see both on the same page. So it's perfect for my work. So
oh, that's awesome! Thank you for sharing, Betty. It looks like Victor has something to share. Hey, Victor, how's it going?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks. So I've used this in a couple of different ways. Sometimes I've embedded a single report chart on an account or contact record. And part of the reason to do that is really to just make it visually more interesting when you look at a record,
absolutely.
Right? So it's nothing fancy there. But I've also had scenarios where I took a small dashboard, maybe 3 of your charts here. And if you think of a lightning page where it has detail related, I'd add a 3rd tab there for charts so that I don't take a hit when it's loading the page initially. So if someone wants to go see the analytics in context, they can click over to that.
That's a really great idea. I like that. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, why don't we keep going? Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing. And I do hope that you all do look like a badass in your organizations after trying this out. I look forward to hearing back how things are going for you. So let's talk about embedded report charts. This is one of the first things that was sort of an eye-catching thing when we made the move to Lightning, and they gave us this ability. So we had the ability in Classic. In Classic, we could embed up to 2 charts per page layout. Well, in Lightning, we don't have that limitation. I think I shared earlier, I got up to 25 or 30, and that would not be optimized, but you know, Salesforce doesn't mind. So if you need to put 6 charts on there, I think Victor's idea of embedding them or sort of tucking them under a tab may be a good idea. So you see here on this screenshot, I don't have this tucked under a tab. So this will always show, except that I know the secret that I put a component visibility on this So this is an account called Dickinson PLC, and we have utilization by day and modules. So this might be a SaaS customer of ours, and they're using they have a subscription to our software, and they're using different modules such as core and analytics and integration. And this, we have component visibility on this chart so that on an account, it only shows if the account type is customer. But we can add charts anywhere on any Lightning page. So let's just take a moment on that. Anywhere on any Lightning page. So on a home page, on an app page, on a record page like this one, this is a record page looking at an account or a lead or a contact. We can embed as many as you want. I mentioned 25, I think, or 30 was, I just got bored after that. When you create the report, you create a chart on the report, and those settings are actually pulled through. So let's say that I wanted to have a reference line and make it red appear across here. I could go back to the underlying report. I could click on the little gear on that chart and add the reference line for the number 2, make it red, and then that would pull through. When you add a chart to a page, the first thing you're going to do is create a system folder to store all of the reports that you're going to embed. That'd be a good best practice. Make that folder read-only and share it with your internal users. We'll talk about that in a bit. So then you create the report. On the report, you add a chart. And so you get the chart laid out the way you want. When you go ahead and add this chart, or you have an sysadmin add the chart for you onto the page layout, what you're going to do is use a record filter, and we'll talk about how to do that, just to say only show the data for this particular account. So this is kind of a key ingredient here, that we're not filtering for the account on the account ID, I'm sorry, on the report. We don't have to do it on the report. We just make it for all accounts on the report. But when it's pulled through, the page is smart enough to do a filter on either the account ID, or we could do the parent account ID. And that's another option for you. So I think Tim talked about working with a nonprofit. Let's say that we're working with Habitat for Humanity. I don't know if they're Salesforce customers, but maybe they are. And maybe they have a regional structure where they have 25 locations in New England, and that all rolls up to a parent organization, a parent account for New England. Well, within our Northwestern Metro Boston Habitat for Humanity, we could show a chart showing the summary data as it is for the parent, for the New England Habitat for Humanity. So we do that with record filters. So we'll look at that. We talked about component visibility, making it optional or not. You know, a key thing to know about embedded report charts is that by default, they refresh every 24 hours. But you do have the ability to essentially enforce a refresh. This is probably such an old screenshot. Sort of funny looking at this. I know this is from a presentation I gave in, it might have been 2019, it could even have been 2018, but we do have the ability to refresh, and I'll show you that. What we also have is a link to the actual report. So if somebody sees something that they want to see the underlying data for, they can go ahead and click on that. One other thing to note is that you can also hover over the report, and you'll see the pop-up appear with that data. So we can also embed dashboards, as we mentioned. We can embed them on home pages and app pages, but not record pages. Now, I heard sort of off to the side in a whisper that the reason for that is that that would kind of directly compete with what we used to call Einstein Analytics, but is now Tableau CRM. That would have been really cool, right? If we could embed a dashboard onto an account layout. I'd love to see that right at the top of all customers, a dashboard showing key metrics. Well, even though we can't do that, we can't embed a dashboard into a record page, we can embed a whole pile of charts. And like Victor suggested, if we need to, tuck them behind a tab if we want. So we can embed dashboards into home pages and into app pages. So the app page is a little used third type of page, but I'll show you an example of one. We can, as we talked about before, show more than one per page. One kind of nice thing when you add a dashboard onto a page layout, all the buttons, the filters, this is a dynamic dashboard in this particular screenshot, and the change link works. You can hover over things, you can click on the links and whatnot. Basically, all the stuff works. If you're not a sysadmin and this is a little new to you, it's very simple to ask a sysadmin in your organization, hey, I created this great dashboard or chart report, could you please add it to a page layout for me? And what all they need to do is just edit the page layout in the Lightning app builder. For report chart, there's a report chart component. For dashboards, there's this dashboard component. You drag and drop. Salesforce is even smart enough to go find recent ones for you. But when you add a component, either for report chart or dashboard onto the page, if you click on the component off to the right, there are the properties for that appearing over on the right, and you can specify which dashboard. There's a few other things that we'll talk about. So the key thing for me is that all the buttons and features work. And we also have one extra thing. We have an open button. So there's a refresh button, as you'd always expect with a dashboard, but there's also an open button if you want to go to the whole dashboard. So component visibility is probably one of the best features with this. We talked about it a little bit before, of showing this to some users, but not all users. So the default is when you add a report chart or a dashboard to a page layout, that everybody who sees that page layout would see that component. But we do have some nice options to set a filter by the device type. If it's a phone or the desktop, by the user, only show this if it's Bob. By the permissions, show this if it's the sales operations director profile. We can also use not record filed, it's record field. Sorry, I didn't catch my spelling mistake there. But you can see here in my screenshot that I have a record field selected, and I've selected the field called type, and the operator on a pick list is equals or not equals. But I can go ahead and select the value from that pick list. Now you can have up to 10 filters in your component visibility, and you can add filter logic if you want. So some really nice flexibility here. This is where we could get very granular and say, you know, if somebody's on the C-suite, if they're one of the executives in the company, they should see it, and the people who are on the sales team, they should see it too. So you can do things like that when you're taking advantage of component visibility. When you're editing the page layouts, the key giveaway that component visibility is in place is you see the orange box in the top right corner with a little eyeball. This is telling you that not everybody will see this, that there is some form of component visibility applied. So again, we can optionally display report charts. We can optionally display dashboards. And this allows us potentially to have fewer page layouts. So instead of having a home page for the sales team, for the marketing team, for the service team, for the exec team, instead of having 4 different homepage layouts, we might be able to get away with 2 and use component visibility and just stack things, and they just will be invisible. They won't even be there if a user who doesn't have visibility loads that page.
I think that kind of answers the question, but Betty asked, can you create custom permission for a versatile group of people? I think you just answered that.
Yep. So, and I think the thing there, so why don't we just take a quick look at that? So I have an org set up. You can see this is a homepage without a, this has an embedded list view, but not an embedded report chart or dashboard, and we'll go ahead and do that. But I know on the account layout that I do have, so I have an account here called Anderson, and I have a few chart layouts, a few charts embedded right into the page. So I've got open cases by owner and status, and opportunity history by quarter. You can see here that you've got a view report link. I can hover over those things. I see the last time it was refreshed. I've got a refresh link that I can force it more than every 24 hours. As a sysadmin, I have the ability to edit the page layout. And if I come in here and click edit page, so you can see that this one here has that component visibility set, because the orange, if I select that over here on the right, I have some controls for that report chart. So again, when you're editing a page layout, if you select that particular component that you want, over on the right, the properties appear. You want to go ahead and give it a label. The default is there is no label. It does not copy the report name up. Where we can specify to filter by the account ID, the other options are filter by nothing. That would show you all the data on that report related to all accounts in the system, and there may be a reason for that. We could use a contacts account ID. We can also use that parent account ID, and that was the example with like the Habitat for Humanity, where we have regional offices, or we have local offices and then a regional office that we want to show the parent data for. So we have all of those choices, but then you can see down, I come back here, I don't even believe that I saved this, but I was just sort of goofing around and tried out 10 different component visibility filters. So this is that you can have 10. I didn't realize that I had saved this. But what you could do in here is I can come in here and choose either record field, device, or advanced. So to do different permissions for different users, you could do advanced. And then if you come into field and select that, there are 4 choices. And we could either say, if the person's first name is Bob, or if their permissions are such and such, and we can go ahead and grab, we should be able to grab, oh, this is so interesting. So anybody who has managed dynamic dashboard, I mean, this is really obscure that we can make this very dynamic. But what I've done before, like in the OpFocus system, is I've actually gone in here and added a filter for, there were 2 people on our team that needed to see one very specific thing. So I literally went into advanced and went into user and then selected, I selected their last name. We had the 2 of us that needed it. We had very specific last names. So I came in here and I said, if the last name contains, Carnes or Shagnon, or I could even do equals if I want. Go ahead and click done. Now, if you do not add advanced filter logic, you can either have all filters are true. That would make an and between these 3. You could do any filters are true. That essentially makes an or between these 3. Or you can do filter logic like we can with other filters. So I could do 1 or 2 and 3, stuff like that. So hopefully that answers the question. This is the component visibility. Like, so once you put a chart or a dashboard onto the page layout.
And Sylvia is curious how you can automatically have dashboards refresh instead of having to click to refresh them each time.
Sure. And that's available on the dashboards themselves. So let me escape from this. So I'm going to go ahead and save this change because we're going to update this later. So let's do this. And so the final status of this one is it's only going to show if it's a customer. So we only have cases for customers perhaps. And so if it's not a customer, don't show. If it's a partner or a prospect, don't even show the chart. That's what's happening there. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. And to set the refresh, it's done using a feature called subscriptions. So I guess there's 2 different things. So for dashboards, you refresh them by subscriptions. So you subscribe to them. And if I were to subscribe to this, I could say, refresh it every day at 6 a.m., something like that. If I save that, it's going to send me an email with that, and it's going to refresh the dashboard at 6 a.m. every day. Specifically with report charts, when they're embedded, it's every 24 hours automatic that they'll be refreshed. That is not true for dashboards, I don't think. But we can double check that, but I don't think it's true. That I think you can set the auto refresh. In fact, I probably would if I embedded a dashboard. One reason why is dashboard tables, if they haven't been refreshed within 7 days, they just show up blank. So that could be a problem. You might actually set that at a minimum to refresh every 7 days, and you do that through a subscription. All right, so that's component visibility. We'll try it out again. So if it was not super clear, but this gives us the option when we embed a report chart or a dashboard to make it visible to some, but not everybody. So one thing before we actually go and do a few hands-on, I'd love to just sort of emphasize, you want to protect the reports that have charts that are embedded, and you want to protect the dashboards that are embedded. Pretty much anything you care about, you should probably protect anyway. And the way to do that, in this case, I would suggest creating a read-only systems report folder, system reports folder, and then you might share that with the public group, all internal users. And you can see here, I've created a folder, and there are a couple of options to share with. If I choose public groups, all users, and then set the access, there are 3 levels of access to folders. We're going to set it to view. What this is going to do is this is going to prevent your average random user from making a change to the embedded report or dashboard. A sort of rookie mistake when you're sharing is to forget to click the share button. You think you've already done the work here by setting it to all internal users in view. Do not forget to click the share button. And the way that you can confirm it has that actually happened is you can see it down below. These are the completed shares. When you first create the folder, you're the owner of it. You're the only one that can see what's in it, except for other sysadmins and people who have profile permissions. But you want to actually take this extra step. Why don't we go ahead and do that? I'll just show you what I mean by this. So if we go to the dashboard tab, I might, on the dashboard tab, go ahead and create a new folder. I've already created one called System Dashboards. Actually, you know what? Let's go use that one. So if we click the button to create a new folder, save it, when we're in the folder, if I were to go to the down arrow and choose share, and I can tell that I'm in the folder because it says dashboards, all folders, and I'm looking at that particular folder. Another way that I could get to my brand new folder is on the dashboards tab. If I go to all folders, I have system dashboards, and I could go ahead and choose share from there if I want. So when the share pops up, let's go ahead and add it, access for all users. So we'll go ahead and choose share with, public groups, and we'll use, there's one out of the box group called all internal users. The reason for this is if you have Experience Cloud, if you're using Experience Cloud and you have customers or partners accessing Salesforce, those customers and partners will not see this folder by default if you share with all internal users. So again, there are 3 levels of folder access: view, edit, and manage. We're just going to give view. This is how you protect them so that somebody doesn't accidentally overwrite. They can still create their own clone, but they can't overwrite your work. So this is important. I'm not done until I click the share button. Click done. Now this is shared with all users, and this will allow it to essentially work correctly. It's probably more important with reports than dashboards. With dashboards, you have this thing called running user. As long as the running user could see it, then the dashboard should work fine. But I think just good best practice on the reports tab, create a folder called system reports, share it with all internal users, view only, and do the same thing on dashboards. I think that'll give you the best results. Okay, Bruce is sharing. I've forgotten to share so many times. Oh, thanks, Bruce. Yeah, I've done it too. Yep, that happens. All right, let's do 2 quick challenges. So let's add a project status chart to an account. So we've started to track projects in our Salesforce instance post sale. So we sell something and we now are tracking that. OpFocus has done this now for well more than a decade. We've had a project object in our system, which tracks the delivery team, the consultants and developers track their work. So I created a simple project object. We'd like to be able to see a visualization of the projects. So we're going to create a report on the projects. One key thing to remember, if you were to create a custom object like this, when you create the custom object, there's a checkbox that says allow reports. That's one little place that people stumble. But we're going to create a report on the projects. We're going to sum the amount by column, group by completed date. These are some fields that I added to the custom object. We'll go ahead and add a chart. This is the rookie mistake. If you forget to add a chart on your source report, you cannot put that non-existent chart onto a page layout. So on your source report, you have to add a chart. And then what we're going to do is edit the account page layout, and we're going to add the report chart component to the page layout. We'll update that layout, add the title, add the filter by the account ID, and we'll use component visibility. So let's go and do this particular example. That felt like a mouthful. But on the reports tab, if I go to create a new report, and because of the way that I created this custom object, I can find the report type under accounts. So I created the custom object for projects with a master detail pointing up to accounts. So that puts the report type under the account category. So I have accounts with projects. And we can see here that there's already a little bit of data in there that I've associated with this account called Anderson. But what I'll do is I'll go right to the filters tab. I'm going to clean up the filters. This is another place where people make a mistake, that they leave default filters or incorrect filters. So I'm going to go ahead and make this for all accounts for all time. And then we're going to group this. I suggest that we group it two ways. Let's group it by completed date. And we'll go ahead and group that by month. The default when you group a report by date is literally the day. That would be way too granular. It's ridiculous. So let's go ahead and make this group dates by calendar month. And we'll come back here and we'll group it one more time by the project status. This is a custom field, a pick list that I added to the project object. All right, so I think we're going to add one more thing, which is a column that I added called the contract amount. And we'll just make sure that that's summed. So we're actually ready to go with this. So now that the report is created and it's grouped, as soon as I have grouped my report by one thing, we have the add chart button up here in the top right. And we have 8 different choices of charts on a report tab. So let's go ahead and make this a stacked column. And what this is going to show, I don't have a ton of data here, but if there were multiple projects, it would show the dollar amount per project by status by completed date month. So it's a little bit of a mouthful, but this will work for us. When I save it, I'm going to do one extra thing. So I'm going to call this projects by month and status. Why don't we actually make this project dollars by month and status. And usually in the report description, I'll add something that says keep your paws off. So it'll be like embedded report chart, please leave this alone or I will find you. Something like that. Maybe nicer than that, less threatening. But if I go ahead and select a folder, and I do have a folder here called system reports that I've already set up with the appropriate visibility. So we're good there. You know what, I skipped one thing. So we'll go ahead and make that change. And I can do it in the run environment as well. So I don't have to edit. I can edit the chart directly in the run environment of the report. Actually, it looks like I'm in the edit environment. So either way is fine. But if I click on that chart properties again, I should probably give it a title. So this was project dollars by complete month and status, something like that. You can put the legend where you want it. Let's say, because I only have a couple of choices, I'll put the legend right below. I could add a reference line if I wanted to. It's not really applicable here. I could add an additional measure if I had, so you can, it has to be the same data type, but there are a few other things that we can do here on the chart, and those will be pulled through to the page layout. So now that I've created my source report and I've saved it in a nice protected folder, all I need to do is go back to the account layout. And I could access this by setup, and I could go to the Lightning App Builder and get to the account page layout, or I can get to it right from this page. So this one is a customer, and you can tell this is interesting that the component visibility is working. This customer, the pick list value is the data isn't correct. So it's actually not showing the component visibility filter actually worked correctly here. There was one more thing showing cases. So I can prove that by just editing this and changing the type to an actual pick list value, customer direct. When I save that, we should have that second chart appear. There it is there. So now if I want to add the third chart that we just created on that report, what I can do is there's a little back door up here, click on the gear under setup, choose edit page, and it brings us directly into this Lightning page in the Lightning App Builder ready to go. And if I go ahead and add a report chart, I'm going to put this one at the bottom. I tend to like to put report charts into the narrow sidebar on a page layout. I'll show you a reason why. If I'm using a vertical stacked bar and I have a lot of data, it'll fill one of these wider components, but otherwise there's going to be a lot of white space. So they tend to fit really nicely into the sidebars, whether you have a left sidebar or right sidebar, doesn't matter. You can see here that, well, this is pulling in another example, but this is pulling in activities by account. Oh, that's interesting. So this is pulling in another one. You can see that even things like a reference line appear. But if I go ahead and click on this, if I want to switch it to the report that we just created, I can go ahead and scroll down. So what did I call that? Projects by month and status. We'll go ahead and set the filter by to the account ID. The default is to show the refresh button. I'd just leave it alone. There is this thing called depreciated. This is like a weird, disregard the man behind the curtain sort of thing. I don't even know why, like, can't they just get rid of it? They're basically telling you that this does nothing. If you go to the hover over, it says this doesn't do anything. It just auto refreshes every 24 hours. So I don't even know why it's there. But if we wanted to add the component visibility, we'll go ahead down, expand component visibility, click add filter. And we can say if the type field equals customer direct. We can't do contains here. It's only equals or not equals. But don't fret, you can always just add another filter if I needed to even do the same field a second way. And I can do the second type of customer here, the channel customer. And I want to be careful and not leave this as all filters are true, because this is really an or. It should be 1 or 2. So I'll change it to any filter is true. That's going to make it an or. So I'm done. I've added my report chart to the page layout. Very, very easy to do. So now when I click after I've saved it, this will be here on this page layout waiting for us. So it's not the prettiest chart in the world, but you can see here the header was pulled through. If I hover over, I get the nice hover over with specific details. I have the view report link. I have the refresh link over here on the right. I can also see essentially the born on Budweiser date of when that was last refreshed. And just because you're looking, like, this is kind of interesting. This one says it was refreshed at 1240. This one was refreshed at 1242. And this one was refreshed at 1040. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that they're not all being refreshed at the same time. That's one thing to keep in mind and tell your users. Somebody says, what happened to my big deal? And because it just isn't refreshed. So, we've had the same thing with dashboards for years with that last refresh date. We just want to keep that in mind, that if you add 10 charts to a page layout, they might have different refresh times. All right. So we have one more challenge, is to add the My Sales dashboard to the home page. So I've created a very simple thin panel showing some key sales data. I'd probably beef it up a little bit in real life, but to help the sales reps focus on what's most important, we'd like to add their My Sales dashboard to the home page. So we'll take a look at the My Sales dashboard. We'll then make a change to the page template. We'll add the dashboard component. So literally in the app builder, we'll go and drop the dashboard onto the page, the dashboard component, and we'll select our dashboard, and then we'll test it out. Christy asked the question, sorry that I didn't catch that earlier. Do you have a master do you have to have a master detail relationship to be able to show the report on the accounts page? No. Great question, Christy. So the answer is no. I just happen to choose master detail, thinking, there's a few reasons why you might choose a master detail, but it's not required to do that. So, and an example of that would be, I'm showing case data on the account. There isn't a master detail between cases and accounts. Karen asked the question, does the folder share apply to subfolders? So the answer is yes. In Lightning, we can nest folders up to 4 levels deep. All of the sharing is controlled by the top level. So in Karen's question, if we had a system report folder, we might have a subfolder for sales reports and a subfolder for customer success leaders would inherit the sharing from that top level. So great question. All right. So let's go do this particular example. I did create a very simple dashboard called the My Sales Dashboard. So this has my open leads by status, my open sales pipeline, just a funnel, my forecast for the month. So this should include closed won and closed lost. I can see that the forecast category isn't filtered the way that I want. Yeah, I think I want to sort these differently. So let me just go make this quick change to both of these elements. Okay, so I'm going to have these sort descending. In real life, I probably have a few metrics over like total sales to date, total sales this month, total sales this quarter, total sales this year. I'd probably put 3 right on top of each other metrics, just showing actual numbers over on the left. Like this one truly does not need to be this wide. It could be, it's the same information. You know, you don't have to have all of these. You don't have to have so much white space. But let's go ahead and save the change. I feel like this is pretty good. But what we can do now is embed this into the homepage. So our homepage currently has a template that has a wide left sidebar and then the narrow right sidebar, but there's no, this is what the original homepage templates look like. As of today, as of like a couple of years ago, there was only one homepage template available. For whatever reason, I think there are 16 when you create a record page layout. Now there are 2 homepage, at least 2, maybe it's 3 now, but there's one that has a full width. I think if you're going to embed a dashboard into the homepage, you don't want it squished. You want it to be the full width. So we're going to change this homepage orientation to be full width. It's not perfect, but if I come in here and click edit page, or if you don't have a custom homepage yet, you'd go under setup Lightning App Builder, you could create a new homepage. But if I go in and edit this page, we can see here that the template is not a full width. It works fine for this list view, but if I add the dashboard component, it's going to squish it in there, and the numbers won't look right and words will be overwritten. It's just going to look kind of stupid. So what I'm going to suggest that we do in this case is take advantage of that second template that was added by Salesforce. So instead of the standard homepage template, I'm going to go over here on the right and choose change template. Now, I don't think this other template's perfect either. So there's 2 other templates. There's header in 3 regions or just one big blob. I don't think either of those are great. Let's choose header in 3 regions. I really wish they had header and a double wide below it. That would make more sense to me, but this is what we have. So I'll go ahead and do this, and it's going to move what was the header into the new header, and it's going to spread out these other items. So let's go ahead and click done. It's a little mapping thing, but this is going to give us a panel at the top that's really wide. And then this is where I'll probably go ahead and add my dashboard. So I'll go ahead and drag that up to the top. And when you select that, it remembers the last dashboard you looked at, which is kind of cool. It doesn't do that with reports, but it does it with dashboards. And you can see here that you have the Born on Budweiser date. If this was a dynamic dashboard, the change link would appear. You have the buttons over to the right. You have links. You can hover over stuff. But before we're done here, let's click on that actual component that we just added. Go over to the right. Don't be tempted into adding a max height. I would just ignore this. Otherwise, you're probably gonna get it wrong, and you're gonna truncate. And you have to measure it in pixels, and I just think it's not worth it. I think leaving the hide on error makes sense, just in case there's a problem with it. Now, if I only wanted this to show for sysadmins and for sales reps, what I could do is go ahead and add the component visibility again. Select the field type. I'll probably do users, and then I'll do profiles. And then I'll do profile names, and I'll click done. And if it contains, and I think we have one called sales. It has the word sales in there, and I'll also put system administrator so we can see it because we're logged in as a system administrator. And that's all I need to do to make this only show up for those two profiles. So we'll go ahead and click save. And this is done. This is ready to go. So if I go back to the home page, we should see now here's an example of caching. This looks kind of stupid. It's like a missing teeth, like my mouth with my gap between my teeth. I should probably move things around on the rest of the home page. But when you start working with pages and you start building things in Salesforce as a sysadmin, you realize that there's a caching issue. So we made the change was saved, but I actually have to go ahead and reload the page to see that. So I'm reloading. Oh, I wonder if did I spell sysadmin wrong? Oh, that'd be too funny. Let me go back and see what I did wrong. Somebody must have caught it, what I did. You know what? I think the or may not work. I don't know that. I think what I did here, let's actually try it without, and then let's click done, and let's add another filter for that sales rep. And of course, I don't remember the standard profile name for I think it's custom sales profile in these orgs, something like that. So if I do that and I say contains sales, and now I'm going to say if it's either are true. I think I couldn't use the comma that way in the component visibility, but let's try that out. There it is. Okay, so that was the issue. I had done sales, comma, system administrator. And when I split them out onto two lines, that worked fine. And that appears across the top here. And you notice that, strange things happen with embedded tables and within dashboards, that it says to view this table, refresh the dashboard. I do have a refresh button here and it will rerun it and show the data. So that's the only quirky thing with embedded dashboards, that tables, if it's more than 7 days, absolutely the table will be blank. And then some other times the table's blank. The last thing to show you is an app page. So I created an app page called customer success, and I could embed I think there are 8 types of components that can go onto app pages. In this case, I just embedded 2 dashboards, one on top of the other. So this is that third kind of page layout. And if I scroll down, it's just one dashboard on top of another, which is another approach to, if you've created all these great things, you could put them onto a single page. As I mentioned earlier, the buttons and things pull through. I have a filter on billing country on this particular dashboard. So that still works. The filter works when it's pulled through. I'll go ahead and run this top dashboard for Canada, and we'll see that that applied. Well, thank you for joining us, Debbie. Glad you could join us. Awesome. So some best practices. Please protect your embedded reports and dashboards. Store them in a read-only system folder for reports and for dashboards. I would go so far as to include the word embedded in the description. Please think about the spacing. So you see here, this is the same chart added 3 different ways to the home page. I added it in the header element, and there's all this white space. The yellow isn't normally there. I just added it as emphasis that there's a lot of extra space. And even when there's a left sidebar and you have this sort of double wide section here, there's still unused space in the page layout. This is why that left-hand sidebar, I think, for report charts in particular, is really quite good. And then, as we talked about, you want to tailor who sees what using that component visibility. All right, so quick recap. We talked about why would you bother doing this? Making you a badass in your Salesforce work. That's the best reason. We talked about embedding report charts and dashboards. We talked about component visibility, using folders. We did a couple of demos, and we talked about some. All right, Justin, I agree. That's good. Badass is always the right answer. That's great. We do have an event coming up on the 20th. I think this is next week already. It must be next week. So we have an event on CPQ. This is an OpFocus event, making the case for Salesforce CPQ with the head of our CPQ practice and a long-time CPQ consultant hosting that. And you can register at opfocus.com. We have a whole pile of upcoming Dōjō sessions that we'd love to have you join us. So they're up on the OpFocus website. January 26th. So 2 weeks from now, we have a hands-on session with on reporting snapshots. When you register for that, what I'd love to do, if you haven't done it before, is take a moment to set up a dev org. And this would be one of the Dashboard Dōjō special ones if you haven't set it up before, but we'll go ahead and do hands-on using that trending feature called reporting snapshots. So in February, we'll do 2 sessions on sales reporting. In March, we'll do 2 sessions on Service Cloud. So each month we'll do 1 hands-on and 1 more presentation style. I have 2 classes coming up, February 14th to the 18th. What's better than spending Valentine's Day with me talking about Salesforce administration? I also teach a 2-day class in March on a 2-day hands-on reporting workshop. So any other comments or questions? I hope you guys have some ideas to go out and use this. Anybody have any specific thing they're going to go right out and use this for? How about you, Kyle? Anything that you can think of that would help you do your job better? Maybe campaign registrations or something?
Yeah. Definitely want to create a dashboard to kind of help centralize a lot of the stuff I go looking for on a daily basis. So exciting. Great.
All right. So I think we've just got another moment if anybody has any other questions. So Tracy shared she's working on combining one homepage for all with embedded dashboards. That's awesome. And Tracy can use that component visibility. It'd be interesting to note if, and I don't know the answer to this, if that would slow down the page if the dashboards aren't shown. So let's say that you had 10 different groups and you only expected to show 1 dashboard per group and you use component visibility. I don't think it's running the other dashboards. I think it's probably prevented, but I guess I'd want to confirm that or test that out. But thank you so much. Hope you can join us again. It's been really great. Ellen shared going to create an embedded folder after this call. That's fantastic. So glad you could join us. Victor's got one, not a specific item right now, but I'm on a project, a lot of potential for embedded reports on project records. Oh, that's great. Project records are a perfect place to embed report charts. So look forward to having you join us again soon. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, everyone.